My daughter's trip was, we got there and the government kind of changed the rules once we got there. And they denied her access to her passport. So it's kind of like if you're an American citizen and you go and you do all the things and pay all the things and fill it out correctly, and the U.S. was just like, no, you can't have a passport. It would be kind of like that. That's what they did to her. But in South Africa. So we were there for a little over 4 months.
Whoa.
Yeah. We had some great lawyers, and we basically sued the government and said, you have to let her leave.
Wow.
Yeah. So we went to court and won. And yeah, it's and what's crazy is most people are like, oh, you must hate that country. And it's like, no, actually, it's a beautiful country. The people there are absolutely amazing. There's a lot of people on the ground doing so much for kids with disabilities, and they're just behind us, like in a lot of ways of just like for us, like the reason we adopted is because we just think every kid and every person is worthy and is fully human no matter what their disability or ability is. So even like little things like going to court, and it's like the highest court. It'd be like us going to like, I don't know, Supreme Court or something, yeah. And there's like all these stairs to get up there. And I'm like, where's the elevator? And like, we don't have one. And I'm standing there with my daughter who's disabled in a wheelchair. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
And for them, they're just like, oh, sorry, But for here, we're like, that was so long ago.
Yeah.
Like you would never show up to court and be like, we don't have a way. So there's just like these grown men carrying my daughter up the steps in her wheelchair.
Wow.
So,
hey everybody, this is Tony.
And this is Paul, and we are headed out on the road for the Friends for Life podcast world tour. So let's hop in the car and get going. Well, Amanda, welcome to the Friends for Life podcast. We're out here on the road, and we have talked to quite a few people already. You're our last guest for this adventure.
How
so we're very excited to talk to you. And, as someone who, as a parent of children with disabilities who get served through the system, one thing that we've had quite a few parents on our show, and, is there any way, I know you work in this realm also, so is there anything that has been difficult with navigating the system as a parent as opposed to someone working in the field? Because our friend Sarah talks about this quite a bit. She's a similar scenario. She's like, I've worked in this career for a very long time and I still have trouble navigating the system.
yeah.
So what are some of the things you're running into?
Well, I would say it is, and I'm glad I started working in the system because at least that gives me a leg up. Like when I think back to before I started here, I just felt like I was guessing and spending a lot of money on things that I didn't know that there were services for. So like, for example, we remodeled our bathroom when we moved into our new house. Our daughter is 5 now. She was 3 then, but she's in a wheelchair. She has moderate intellectual disability. And we didn't know that there could be help getting a bathroom modification.
Wow.
So things like that, you save up or you take a loan out or something like that and you pay for it. Or even like you buy a wheelchair and insurance says, you have to agree to pay for this, but we're not going to tell you how much we're going to cover it for because it's custom. So you're kind of signing on the dotted line, again, not knowing that there are waiver services or there's even, in our county, we have FSS services, and there's definitely ways to financially help families. So that's probably the most frustrating for me is just you don't have somebody there saying, wait, don't make your child go without, or don't buy that, or if you can't afford that, there are other options. So
it seems like a very confusing realm to operate in, and I'm still learning a lot of this stuff myself. And it is just, what do you recommend for people that maybe are going through a similar thing? What would you say, like, how can they reach out to a board or whatever and find these services? Where do they start?
Yeah, that was really challenging for us, which is a great question because we actually adopted our kids. So when they came home to us from overseas, the first place we went was like the local children's hospital. And they I think they're a bit knowledgeable, but it's more of just kind of like, hey, go find your county board. So for a parent I've lived in Licking County my whole life. I didn't even know what the county board was. So it was a lot of Googling and a lot of, is this BCMH? Is this the board? And a lot of misinformation. Like the first time we walked into a dealership to look at ramps for a van modification, the first question they asked was, what waiver do you have? And as a parent, I'm like, I've never even heard of a waiver. Now that I work here, that's not how waivers work. You don't just walk into your county board and say, hi, I'd like to pick up a waiver. Where do I sign? So I would just say we waited a long time to get connected with the county board. So we navigated a lot of things on our own. And that's where I think we did things backwards, like modifying a bathroom, trying to modify a bathroom on our own, not doing it the right way. And it's still not fully accessible to what she needs because we didn't have someone helping us. So I would say, the sooner you get to the board and you can, get connected and start asking those questions, and honestly, just like finding a service coordinator or an SSA that's really knowledgeable is huge. Because the first person we had, she just knew a lot about waivers and a lot about meeting those needs, and gosh, we'd be lost without her. So it's super helpful.
Do you currently use any DSPs, or what we said on one of our last episodes, or what I'm calling them, life companions?
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah. Our daughter has a DSP and she's absolutely amazing. We just found her. We've had some in the past, but they just didn't work out very well. So the one we have now, she's an independent. She's actually with my daughter right now. And we're teaching her how to use the new bath chair we just got yesterday.
Nice.
So yeah, she's been a lifesaver, just absolutely wonderful. And summer times are really hard for us because she doesn't have a daycare that she could go to because people won't take her because of her level of need. So to have somebody that can come into our house, work with her on like sensory play, making sure she's safe, giving her time to be in her walker, like I said, starting with the bath chair, things like that, that's huge, really huge. So
definitely. I mean, I'm sure you're working and trying to do everything you can, so every little bit counts.
Yeah.
You're pregnant currently, and I say that because a year into being a supervisor, I made the worst mistake that a man could ever make, period. I assumed the lady was pregnant when she was not, as she's sitting and talking to me. No, I knew I shouldn't have did it. I knew I shouldn't have said it, but it was just something in me. I was like, you know what, Tony, you're confident.
Yes.
And she was not. So still to this day, I feel very embarrassed, and I pray I never see her ever again. But, with everything that you have currently been working on for your children that you now have, is the anticipation of having your child changing the way that you thought in the past? I mean, since you previously adopted, now you have a biological child. Is there anything in there that has you thinking like, man, these were my past experiences. Now it's time for me to stay prepared? Yeah.
I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, for us it's just different because as far as we know, baby on the way has no developmental disabilities or anything like that. So for us now, our biggest thing is thinking through like his life and making sure he doesn't feel like he's an extra caregiver or he's an extra, it's a boy, or like extra DSP, I guess.
Gotcha.
If that's that's kind of our thought frame of like, but it will be a totally different world because we're used to kind of like, I think a lot of moms with kids in the system can relate to, like, you're always looking for that next battle you're going to have to fight. You're always looking for that next IEP meeting you have to maybe advocate for. So that's just a lot. What's always on my mind with the two of them is, like, this past week it was battling the charge for the shower chair, which is essentially like a chair you would take to like a soccer game. Like it's like plastic and netting. But if it's a medical device and insurance can have their way with it, it's going to be $2,000. So things like that, it's always one battle after the next, and learning to just pace yourself. And I would just say, like, the sooner you get connected with the board, the sooner you understand services that are available. Even like getting connected with Medicaid was like life altering for us, because we had the availability to so many things that we wouldn't have been able to afford for her with our own private insurance. So
I think sometimes there's a sense of pride that people mistakenly have with things like this. I've seen families get into the system later on because they thought that they could do it all on their own. Do you think that that's still kind of a way of life, or are people kind of pushing for the system to help?
I think, no, that's huge, because I was one of those parents. Like, I didn't have a clear understanding of Medicaid growing up. I never thought it would be something that I would need. I know that sounds terrible, but I've come a long way with it. So I do see a lot of families, like, I'll meet people in the community or have friends at church or something and be like, hey, get connected with the county board. Oh, we're okay, we're fine. But they don't realize all those additional services that are out there. So yeah, for us, it was huge to finally get connected and to realize we don't have to do these things on our own. And they bring things that we didn't even think of.
Right.
Like, they just have, like, I didn't even know, like, for example, our daughter aged out of like sizes of diapers at the store. And we were like, it just hit us one day. We're like at Target picking up diapers. We're like, wait a second. There's no sizes after this. Like, what are we going to do? And so I went to the board and I'm like, what happens? They're like, oh, well, through her waiver, she has Medicaid. You can get diapers shipped directly to your house that are the next size up. I'm like, my mind is blown. So now we're saving how much money each month on diapers, but also, like, someone literally calls our house every month and says, how many diapers do you have and how many, we'll deliver them. And then they're on our porch like 2 days later.
Yeah.
So if you're not asking those questions, as a parent, you'd be out there scrambling. How am I going to pay for this? Where am I going to find this size? So I think it's just like slowing down, calming down, realizing there are people, they have answers.
Yeah.
Can help.
It's funny, like on a personal level, how much easier life gets if you're willing to just give up on like old ways of thinking and like things that would be considered like you might get made fun of or whatever. If you're willing to just like let that go, your life becomes so much better in like every scenario, as far as I've found. Like, if you're just willing to like just go and do stuff, your life's so much easier, like what you've literally just proven. So I think that's a good message for a lot of people, because there is a lot of stigma with like taking, what was it, Medicaid,
yeah.
Sorry, I don't know either. I have no concept of it.
Get to know Medicaid. It's a nice source.
There's a stigma with it, because a lot of people have a lot of pride and they're like, I'm not taking the handout. Like, no, it's here to help you. This is why this exists. You don't need to go this alone.
Oh, dude, man, when I first started this company, food stamps galore, because I put everything that I had into it. And then I had the person from JFS, and I'm explaining to her the situation, like, we started this business and we're behind. Well, you can claim all of that. And I said, what? And like that, $1,200 in food stamps. I was like, whoa. Yeah. And I didn't feel bad about taking it. I paid my taxes, and I created opportunities for others. The only other person that was with me during those hardest times was my wife. And like, if we're going to make any kind of sacrifice, this is the one that we need to make, but we also need to ask for help. And it might be from a source that most people might say is used negatively in some aspects, but I can guarantee you I'm using it for the right ones.
Right.
So that helped us for a good year to even get Friends for Life put in the place that it needed to be.
Yeah.
Dude. Kids.
I know.
Right?
He's a professional parent. He has 5 children.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when you talk kids, I get so involved. Oh, okay. So your daughter 5, you said?
Yeah.
What does she like to do? Like,
Oh man, she's a treat. She likes, well, both my kids, if I have a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old. The 5-year-old, she likes to, and like I said, she has a pretty moderate intellectual disability. So she's happiest sucking her thumb, sitting on someone's lap. So right now, that's probably her DSP at our house. And she also seeks a lot of sensory. So she likes to hit her head a lot on hard surfaces. So we just got her fitted for a helmet last week at Nationwide Children's. So she can do that safely without, having to give it a... What?
Does she get to decorate it?
Well, yeah, we're going to. They tried to send us home with this ugly brown one. I said, we'll wait 3 weeks for the custom pink one. Thank you.
There we
So
go.
it will be in a couple weeks, and we'll probably put some stickers and, inclusion is awesome, kind of things like that on it. But yeah, again, one of those things, there's just so many things that growing up, I thought, I just will have private insurance because I'll be employed, and insurance, like you pay your premium and you pay your deductible and they just take care of you. And in some cases they do, and in a lot of cases they don't. So even things like that helmet and that visit to the doctor would be a huge bill without having her waiver and access to Medicaid. So we can kind of freely do those things. We don't have to put it off because we've been putting it off for a while. So now we don't have to. But yeah, that's what she likes to do.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about family-wise? Any family trips that you like to do that everybody gets involved?
Well, it just depends. She's tricky because we have learned last year we went to the beach, but she's in a wheelchair. So it was kind of like our last trip renting a house without an elevator because we were carrying her up and down the stairs. Like, okay, she's getting a little too big for this. But really, both my kids are from South Africa, so we spent a lot of time there just with their adoption trips, and so really like saving up to go back so they can have a chance to visit.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so I have friends that recently adopted a child, and so from what I understand, the process is a little of a pain in the butt.
It's a little long, yeah.
A little bit of a long journey. Was it, is it different? I don't know what your situation is. Was it different adopting a child with a disability versus just any other child,
It is, yeah. So, I can only speak specifically to the country that they're from in South Africa, but what's really cool is a lot of locals are adopting babies there who are, neurotypical and things like that. So really the kids who need adoption are older and who are disabled. And so once we learned that, it wasn't like we went in to adoption saying like, we're going to adopt a 10-year-old or whatever with CP or anything like that. We just thought, there's kids that need families, we should adopt. Then once we got into the program, they were like, well, these are the kids that are waiting. So like our son we adopted first, he was 6.5 on a waiting list because he was deaf and he has cerebral palsy. So, but sadly, if he was like a 1-year-old and he didn't have those diagnoses, he would have been adopted in country, no problem. So then, once we took that on and we saw our daughter on the waiting list, she was 2 at the time, but she has a list of medical diagnoses. So she would have just probably sat on that list forever until she aged out. So, the need is huge for kids with disabilities. And I think part of it is probably like the access to like healthcare and making sure like if I did parent this child, what would I have access to? So sadly, I think that's why some kids end up in those situations because of that. But
your heart is a superpower. I just got to be real. I'm thinking logically here for myself. And every bit of what you went through, it would make me almost literally crap my pants. I am not playing it's scaring me. Like I'm literally shaking a little bit thinking like, would I ever have the tenacity to do something like that? And I know I could offer something positive. I know I could offer something great. Like I almost want to cry. Like, it's a lot. And not even talking low, you're talking a whole nother country. Cool. I need to call D.L. Hughley so he can start giving people the claps for us.
So I love traveling. I just like to travel a lot. What was the experience like going to South Africa? I mean, it looks like a beautiful country.
Oh man, that's a big question. It depends on the trip. Our first trip was beautiful. Our son's paperwork was piece of cake. We landed. We were out in 6 weeks exactly. Did court, all of that. Lots of beautiful wineries and scenery, and you can obviously do safaris, things like that. So it was a piece of cake. My daughter's trip was, we got there and the government kind of changed the rules once we got there. And they denied her access to her passport. So it's kind of like if you're an American citizen and you go and you do all the things and pay all the things and fill it out correctly, and the U.S. was just like, no, you can't have a passport. It would be kind of like that. That's what they did to her. But in South Africa, so we were there for a little over 4 months.
Whoa.
Yeah. We had some great lawyers, and we basically sued the government and said, you have to let her leave.
Wow.
Yeah. So we went to court and won, and it's and what's crazy is most people are like, oh, you must hate that country. And it's like, no, actually, it's a beautiful country. The people there are absolutely amazing. There's a lot of people on the ground doing so much for kids with disabilities, and they're just behind us, in a lot of ways of for us, the reason we adopted is because we just think every kid and every person is worthy and is fully human no matter what their disability or ability is. So even little things like going to court, and it's the highest court. It'd be like us going to I don't know, Supreme Court or something, yeah. And there's all these stairs to get up there. And I'm like, where's the elevator? And we don't have one. And I'm standing there with my daughter who's disabled in a wheelchair. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
and for them, they're just like, oh, sorry, But for here, we're like, that was so long ago. You would never show up to court and be like, we don't have a way, So there's just these grown men carrying my daughter up the steps in her wheelchair.
Wow.
So, but it's an amazing country, and I highly recommend it to anyone. If you want amazing wine, but also the beach and the mountains at the same time, South Africa. Yes. And then hit a safari on your way home. It's perfect.
Well, so, we can't just skip over this story. That is a heck of an adoption story right there.
Yeah.
So 4 months in South Africa.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? Is it just a lot of were you working from there, or was it just you're stuck there? Or
we just were stuck. We just hung out, and eventually my husband had to go back home because, again, insurance. We were bringing her home. We knew she would need lots of medical attention when she got home, and so he went back home with our son, and my daughter and I stayed there for the rest of the trip, the last, I think, 7 or 8 weeks. And we just rented a house, but people came alongside us and they helped us, and someone let us borrow their car, so we weren't paying a full renter fee and things like that. And so we had a lot of support from the other families because there was a couple other families there that were also stuck. But if anything, it really
So it just wasn't her. It was
there were 6 of us families.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So we bonded, and other families were there adopting kids who have disabilities as well. One of my friends, she was adopting, her son has autism and various things. And so, we hung out, and it bonded my daughter and I, because I was like, I get the only other thing you could do is just leave her there. But she was already adopted legally. She's completely my daughter. I'm not going to leave her behind. Point. Yeah. And that's not even an option. So we we fought hard for her, and that's what I feel like we've been doing since we got home, is just teaching people that even if she's different, she's still completely worthy of everything else that everyone else has. So whether we're out in public and somebody's she gets mistaken for a boy a lot because she just, the amount of sensory that she seeks, she rips her hair out and she kind of rubs her scalp with her palm a lot. And so just, reminding people girls can have different hair, and, or little kids are very curious, why are her legs like that? So just explaining to people, even at a young age, like teaching the next generation, just be curious and ask questions, but always say hi. Don't be scared of her because she might make weird sounds and she doesn't talk. But so I think that's what makes me like most excited to work in the field, but also be a parent, is just advocating that message over and over again. Like, these people are just like you and I, and it doesn't matter what they can or cannot do and how they look different or how they get around differently or how they eat differently. So, yeah.
Did you have any like family members growing up that had a disability or anything, or?
No. Like I said, we got into the process to just adopt. And then once we realized, like, you're just staring at this list of kids and you're like, you could wait a long time for a 2-year-old that has no needs whatsoever. But that's not why we got into the process. We didn't do it, we're actually very pro like family and very pro reunification. Like, I don't want to see kids get adopted. I want to see kids stay in their families. So now my wheels are turning of like, well, how do I help here and other countries so that parents don't feel like they have to make that choice? Because I know for our daughter, it was a lot of the, how am I going to care for her? How am I going to pay for this and that? And for me, that's a horrible, horrible reason to choose adoption, because she has parents that love her and they just didn't have access to those things. So that's kind of like a dark, kind of yucky part of adoption. But for me, I'm like, how do we get access to people so they can parent and feel empowered and, have things like Medicaid that will help them, just meet their daily needs. So
that's so awesome, because that is like literally the exact opposite mindset of like 99% of the world, I think. They'd be like, I'm not touching that.
I get myself in a lot of trouble. Yeah.
We need more people like you, to be honest. There's not enough of them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this all feels like it's coming from a place of just like pure empathy and compassion, not just like, I mean, if anybody's adopting a child at all, that's coming from a huge place of empathy and compassion, because that's like, it's a large financial undertaking. It's a large, time undertaking, and it's very thing. So like what you're doing is awesome. Do you have plans to, when you said you want to go back to South Africa, are you going to, have them meet their parents again, or is there any plans to do that? Because
it just depends. I mean, we like to keep their history private for them to share when they can and how they want to, especially for our son who's older and can share those things. But I just would say every child is very complex, and their history with their birth families are very complex. So we leave it up to our kids, like they, as the adoptee, it's their story. It's what they're looking for. Just recently, our son actually, he's the 10-year-old, he is, like I said, deaf and has CP. Well, when we adopted him, his name was Caleb, and we changed it to Ben because we were like, oh, I want to name him, like our first kid, you get to name your baby even though he's 6. And so he was extremely language delayed because he didn't have access to sign language until he was almost 5.5. So he missed those core years. So we've been playing catch up ever since we've had him. And he uses a communication device that we got through the board, which has been a total lifesaver. Nice. Again, one of those things we would have just tried to find a way to get an iPad versus like having access to it through these services. And so through that, because he can't really express himself super well with sign language because his CP signs are really distinct and his hands might not be able to quickly make those motions. He gets frustrated, it's hard. Yeah. So pressing a button is just way easier. Right. So I can sign to him and he can receive that with receptive language, but his expressive is really hard. So once we got access to this iPad, it's like his language exploded. And now he's able to say, I actually want to go by Caleb. Like before I was adopted, my name was Caleb. I want to go back to that. Like, I'm finished with Ben. So we're like, all right, buddy, like you're 10. So he's learning to advocate for himself. Nice. So we just recently this month, like told all our friends and family and here everybody at the board, we're like, he's going back to Caleb. And so he's been so excited. He's like changing his Netflix profile to say Caleb and everything. So yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, nice. I'm curious. What is he binging on Netflix?
Lots of PJ Masks, which is like, I'm pretty sure a show for like 3-year-olds, but he's like stuck on it.
PJ Masks is awesome.
He loves PJ Masks, yes. But he's getting into the Xbox with his dad now. So now he's asking a lot for like, if I clean my room, can I have the Xbox? Like, yeah. We're in that stage now. So
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
the best
That's
stage.
what
It
my
is.
boys are.
Yes.
Oh man, they really are.
Yeah.
They were up last night to like 11 watching wrestling or something.
oh man,
So get ready for that.
yeah,
So-
Underwear and oiled up.
yeah.
Very strange. But so I mean, what does he like to do besides playing video games? I mean, that's like the key commodity. Any like, you know, young to teen boy, that's like the thing right now. So anything else that he enjoys doing?
He's really into soccer, which has been really fun. So we just did a soccer camp this week, and he won tickets to the crew game for this weekend. So he's very excited. I have all the kids
Nice,
at this
nice.
camp. But his favorite team is Everton, which is a Premier League team
I don't know
over in
much
Europe. That's okay.
Yeah, my kids have known because they're into soccer tough too. Like,
Yeah.
we should probably get them together at some
Yeah.
point. Like, it sounds like they'll have a great time.
Yeah, so we got him tickets to see them for his birthday this month. So he doesn't know that it's coming yet. So he'll be very excited.
Nice.
That'll
Yeah.
be awesome. What
Enjoy
day is his
it, Caleb.
birthday? Mine's on the 7th, so I'm
Okay,
excited.
he's a 24.
Yeah, my daughter's is the 9th. My sister's is the 10th.
Liz is the 9th?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
All the July
I should have
birthdays.
known that because she's my niece.
Yeah, you should have.
Yeah, oh.
Look, you see that, Lily?
Awkward.
That's my life. But, you know, anyway, is there anything that, you know, that you feel is important for people to know about, you know, kids with disabilities? I know you kind of talked about it, but, you know, a lot of the time from people who aren't involved with people or don't have them in their life or don't work at a job like this, it's so not visible to the public, disabilities. It's just not there. Like you see somebody at Walmart occasionally getting groceries or something, or someone, you know, out in public, you know, at the movie theater or something. But other than that, we don't get a glimpse into their day-to-day life like you would anybody else. So
Yeah. I mean, other than what I've already said of like, they're just people like us, and it doesn't matter how they do things differently or look differently. They want the same things in life out of we do. And I would just say, like, start teaching your kids now about, like, they're going to have classmates that are different. And there's just a huge difference between people who will approach my daughter and be like, hey, Hattie, how are you? They know she can't talk back. She can't make eye contact. But for me, those are those moments that go so far because they're treating her like a human. If you saw a cute 5-year-old, and she's cute, you would say hi, you know? Or like little kids who shy away and parents kind of like tug them away. And I'm like, no, bring them back. Like, let them explore and like learn who she is and ask those questions. So for me, those are those moments that I like make it or break it as a parent of just start now. Like, get to know them, talk to them. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
So, and I think it will change the future for adults with disabilities for sure.
absolutely. So Tony,
I think it's time.
for rapid fire.
Yes.
The best part of the show.
Oh boy.
Rapid Fire is a game show that we play here.
I was not
and-
prepared for this.
No, you should not be.
Okay.
That's the best part.
Okay.
Rapid Fire is set in a would you rather scenario. I ask you 3 questions. The sooner you answer them, the better it will be for our content.
Okay.
If it take long, we will talk about you later on.
Okay. Oh, gosh.
All right, are you ready?
I hope so.
Due to your condition, I made these specifically for you.
Okay.
All right, would you rather your baby come out talking or walking?
Talking.
Interesting.
Would you rather have to breastfeed using your knees or your elbows?
Oh, my elbows? I'm thinking motioning? Yeah. Elbows.
Elbow.
Yeah.
Would you rather drink a jar of pickle juice or an entire tub of ice cream?
Entire type of ice cream. That's easy. It wouldn't even feel like punishment. Easy.
I thought you were going to say both. Like, just chug the juice and go for the ice cream.
No, the ice cream, easy. Wash it down with some cake.
Is that a real thing? Like pregnancy cravings? Is that like a real?
I haven't had like anything insane. I think I've just been giving myself liberty to eat whatever I want, whenever I want. Like cake
too.
at 9 a.m. That's not off limits. No one's judging you. Like they're like, oh,
I thought
she
that was
wants
just a
that.
muffin.
Yeah, it is with icing. Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, I just eat whatever I want, whenever I want. It's great.
Yeah, me too. That's part of the problem. It's not I don't have any like reasoning for it. That's just me as a person.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was like really awesome for me. I got to learn a lot, and you know, you're just a great person for doing what you
Yes,
do. So thank
yes.
you so much.
Thank you,
We need
Amanda.
more people like you, and not only in this field, but in the world. Like
Yeah.
more compassionate people. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Appreciate it.